This was supposedly identified as a safe zone by Israel in Rafah. But in the middle of the night, fires raged through tightly packed tents, pitched close to UNRWA warehouses, where aid supplies had been stored. People frantically searched through the rubble for survivors. But what they found was more than 40 charred bodies, most of them women and children. The attack followed the first long-range rocket attack on Israel from Gaza since January. Hamas fired 8 rockets towards Tel Aviv from Rafah. Most of them were intercepted or fell harmlessly in fields, and no significant injuries were reported. Israel responded with what it called a strike on a Hamas compound with precise ammunition and on the basis of precise intelligence. Israel claimed the strike had killed 2 senior Hamas officials, but also acknowledged that civilians may have died from a fire set off by the strikes.
According to initial reports, these are initial reports, a fire broke out after the attack, which appears to have taken civilian lives. Civilian casualties are desperately sad, but this is the war Hamas wanted and started.
Later, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu called the airstrikes a tragic accident, which was being investigated.
ברפיח כבר פינינו כמיליון תושבים בלתי מעורבים. ולמרות המאמץ העליון שלנו שלא לפגוע בבלתי מעורבים, קרתה לצערנו אמש תקלה טרגית. אנחנו חוקרים את המקרה, אנחנו נסיק את המסקנות, כי זו המדיניות שלנו. אני מצדיע לחיילינו ומפקדינו, כי זו המדיניות שלנו.
But in the same breath, Netanyahu vowed to keep up the battle to destroy Hamas. And that involves continuing to pound Rafah from the air and the ground. Netanyahu insists that several top Hamas leaders and their battalions are holed up in Rafah. And to eliminate the group is key to achieving total victory in a war that has dragged on for nearly 8 months. Netanyahu has ignored the International Court of Justice, which ordered Israel to put an end to its military operation in Rafah.
The court considered that, in conformity with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part.
Netanyahu is already under pressure from multiple sides. At home, he's facing the wrath of families of hostages who are losing patience as their loved ones remain in Hamas's custody. Internationally, even Netanyahu's closest allies are questioning him over the rising death toll and lack of a post-war plan in Gaza. While Netanyahu has defiantly carried on with his battle against Hamas, the strike on the camp in Rafah may finally be a tipping point. Global condemnation is pouring in as world leaders remind Israel that their actions in Rafah are no longer justifiable.
The last figure seems to be around 40 people, including small children, being burned. They condemn this in the stronger terms. It proves that there is no safe place in Gaza. And these attacks take place immediately after the International Court of Justice ordered it to stop all military activities in Gaza.
Pro-Palestinian protests have once again erupted around the world as demands grow for Netanyahu and the Israeli government to be held accountable for having blood on their hands. Will the US, which has said it will not support Israel's assault on Rafah unless a credible plan to protect civilians is put in place, put pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu to hold back. 24 hours after the deadly strike, Israel continues to pound Rafah, where more than half of Gaza's 2.3 million population have sought refuge since the war began on the 7th of October. About 1 million have been forced to flee again, as Israel has moved into the outskirts of the city. As the death toll in Gaza crosses 35,000, what will make Israel blink?